Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas using the original source material. Today, we're cracking the code on a huge question. How does a city grow into a sprawling, complex metropolis?
56%. Get this, by 2005, that's how much of Mexico's population was living in metropolitan areas. It's a massive shift for a country that was mostly rural just a century before. And this isn't just a Mexico story. This kind of explosive urban growth is happening all over the planet.
So at what point does a city stop being just big and turn into a totally different kind of beast? That question is at the very heart of a huge debate for urban planners. And today, we're going to investigate by zeroing in on the story of one city, Guadalajara. Okay, let's dive right in. Before we can solve the mystery of when Guadalajara really became a metropolis, we've got to get our terms straight. Think of this as our official investigator's toolkit.
First up is conurbation. Just picture two separate, independent towns. They just keep growing and growing until, poof, their borders touch. They're basically neighbors, sharing a fence now, but each one is still running its own house with its own mayor, its own rules.
Next, we've got urban agglomeration. Now, this is a whole different ballgame. This is not about two equals meeting. This is about one giant, dominant city expanding outward and just swallowing up the smaller towns around it. And those little towns become completely dependent on the big city core.
And that brings us to the main event, metropolization. Now, this is the crucial point, so listen up. This isn't just about physical size. It's a whole process where a city's influence, we're talking its economy, its politics, its social life, starts spilling way over its official borders. The entire region starts acting like one single unit, but the political maps and the governments just haven't caught up. And what does that lead to? Total jurisdictional chaos.
So let's just nail this down. Conurbation is about touching. Agglomeration is about absorbing. But metropolization, the one we're really digging into, is defined by that messy, cross-border influence. You know, who's in charge of the bus route that crosses three different towns? Who fixes a pothole on a street that's a border? That confusion, that is the smoking gun.
All right, our toolkit is ready. Let's see what happens when we apply these ideas to our case study. What does the official story, the accepted history, say about when Guadalajara became a metropolis?
Well, the conventional wisdom, the story you'll find in most textbooks, points right to the mid-20th century. Most experts have flagged the 1950s, or for sure the 1960s, as the time when Guadalajara's sprawl finally, physically, connected with its neighbors. And for a long time, that's been the accepted timeline.
But, and this is a big but, the author of our source material, Edgar Tovar, he has a different idea. He argues that if we start looking for the right clues, economic influence, governance confusion, not just physical growth, we'll find that the official story is actually missing its first few chapters.
So let's get into the evidence and see how he builds this new case. We're going to hunt for clues in old laws, economic records, transportation networks, and even some pretty dramatic real estate disputes. The first clue is hiding in the law books. Way back in 1927, this free municipality law created the very administrative borders that would soon cause all the trouble. Then jump to 1948, and a public works council in Guadalajara was given the legal power to intervene in neighboring towns. I mean, think about that. The government itself was basically admitting that the city's problems had already spilled way past its official lines.
The economic evidence goes back even further. We're talking the early 1900s, where major industrialists based in Guadalajara owned and ran these huge textile factories in the surrounding towns. What that means is, decades before the so-called official start, the entire region's economic life was already being directed from that central city. It was already a single, functionally integrated economic zone.
And the transportation network, it tells the exact same story. You had an electric tram connecting the region as early as 1907. Then paved roads were built in the late 30s specifically to handle all the traffic going between the towns. And by 1945, a single bus company was serving all three municipalities as if there were already just one city.
But here is the clincher. In 1942, a developer starts building a new neighborhood. The problem? It sat right on the border between Guadalajara and Zapopan. This kicked off a massive, years-long legal battle over who had jurisdiction. This is a perfect, textbook example of that governance confusion that is the absolute hallmark of metropolization. So, we've reviewed the legal files, the economic trail, the physical evidence, all of it. So what's the final verdict?
When did Guadalajara's transformation really begin?
The population data from the 1930s is just so revealing. Yeah, Guadalajara was growing, but its neighbor Tlaquepaque was growing 2.5 times faster. That right there is the metropolitan effect in action. The central city acts like a magnet, and the new growth just spills into its suburbs. This was all happening in the 1930s, not the 60s.
So, based on all this evidence, the author reaches a really bold conclusion. The genesis of Guadalajara's metropolization wasn't a physical event in the 1950s, it was a political one, all the way back in 1927. The creation of the free municipality is what set the stage for all the future conflict by drawing lines on a map that the city's real-life growth was always going to ignore.
And this isn't just some academic history lesson. This stuff matters. The tangled-up problems of traffic, housing, and public services that modern cities face today, they didn't just appear out of thin air. They have deep roots in a process that began and a governance structure that struggled nearly 100 years ago.
It's a powerful idea that really makes you look at your own city differently, right? What invisible borders and forgotten history are shaping the way you live and move every single day? And when you really get down to it, who's actually in charge?